Tisha, Aubrey, and Elise. Tisha is going to go first. She's going to present for 20 minutes on assistive technology tools in Microsoft. And Tisha has to leave a little early, so she's going to take questions right after her talk. And then we're going to have Elise from MGH Inspire is going to talk about social media and social interaction. And then Aubrey is going to speak, who's from BPS, and she's going to talk about assistive and augmentative communications. And then we're going to have another Q&A after that for all of your technology questions. So please try to think of what you want to ask, because we have these wonderful people here. We have such a breadth of knowledge. And there's a lot of SpEdPAC members here, so if you have any questions about what the SpEdPAC does, or if you'd like to get involved, we're always looking for more voices to help us let the district know what people or families need, and also to let you know that there's a community here. So feel free to go up to anybody, any of us, Sandy, and ask us more questions. So, Tisha, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome. Good evening. How are you? It is my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. My name is Tisha Nguyen. My last name is really unique. It's spelled Nguyen. So if you're internationally traveled, you would realize that 75% of people with that last name are Vietnamese. Your eyes are not deceiving you. I don't look Vietnamese. However, there is a Vietnamese gentleman in here, and your critical thinking skills are correct. That is my husband. So you got that one right. The more I speak with you, the more you hear a bit of an accent. Your ears are not deceiving you. I'm originally from the Caribbean islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Speak about 8 different languages, Vietnamese being one, and that is the accent that you're hearing come through. I am the solutions professional. I work for Microsoft. I sit on their Education US Management team, and I am in charge of all higher ed and K-12 in New England. Before coming over to Microsoft, I spent about 25 years in school districts throughout Texas, Alabama, Massachusetts, Dubai, and several Spanish-speaking countries. That was my career. So being back in a school district makes me very happy, and it's a great place for me to be. I was a teacher, I was a principal, I was a chief academic officer. I enjoyed my 25 years a whole lot. At Microsoft on the education team, relating to the accounts that I cover in K-12, Boston Public Schools being one of those accounts, my work is targeted relating to English language learners, immigrant students, special education students, students needing accommodations, students reading behind on grade level, students needing help with the basic functions of reading, writing, and mathematics so they can get into the college realm and college bound. That's one of the reasons I decided to come work for Microsoft. About 3 years ago, Microsoft developed a suite of tools that they call learning tools. The tools are free. They work on every device. We at Microsoft just has been working really hard to make everybody aware of them. Relating to the student groups that I talk about, your students and your children are able to access these to help them with reading, writing, comprehension, English language arts, and mathematics. The best way to do this presentation was for me to navigate to the website. So you can go to any search engine on any device and just, even on your phone, and just type in Microsoft Learning Tools. When you type that in, one of the options that you will get will bring up this website, which is OneNote, so onenote.com/learning tools. When that comes up, the web page you're looking at is going to look like this. it's going to say OneNote, and it's going to say Immersive Reader, Microsoft Learning Tools. That's how you know you've gotten to the right location, the right place. Perfect timing. There is one of me, and I have many colleagues throughout Microsoft, and the organization that I love to partner with in Microsoft most are the Microsoft Prudential stores. As you know, we have about 11 of them in the Massachusetts area. This young lady is the education expert for the flagship Microsoft store, which is at Prudential Center. So anything I do with you here today, you can actually go into the store and she would actually sit one-on-one with you and your student and do it. In her role, in her job, she actually comes out and does these presentations for schools, teachers, students, administration. That is her role. So if you don't catch everything, just make sure you get one of her cards. She also bought copies and handouts of this, and you can follow up with her to receive that support. So, learning tools. Let me show you how this works. I'm just going to click on Try It Out, just to show you a demo of it. Many of our students who are in the umbrella that I described earlier, ordinary text on a page like this is really small and difficult for them to read. As a result, from the time you click the Learning Tools button, it immediately makes the text larger for your children. So students who have any type of learning disability or need any help with reading, comprehension, writing, it has all those assets built in to make them successful academically. So it enlarges the text for them. In addition to doing that, when you click on the play button for it,
Learning Tools Immersive Reader creates a reading experience that adds access.
it starts reading any text for them. They're able to click on the two A's right here at the side, and it can make the text bigger or it can make it smaller. It can increase the spacing, it can change the font. So let me show you live. So for example, I'm going to click this button.
Accessibility and comprehension for learners of all ages and abilities. The menu in the upper right corner.
I'm going to make it bigger and even bigger. So if you have a student that needs it to be this big or needs it to be this small, your students are able to make adjustments relating to any text you have. It could be biology, chemistry, reading. This works for all subjects. This works in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, email, every single Microsoft Office application and tool. There is a button that says Immersive Reader. Press it and this is what it does. In addition to that, it can change the font sizes. So your child can actually choose what font they learn best with. One of the best tools that I like in this learning tool package is that it breaks words into syllables. So I remember when I was dating my husband and learning Vietnamese for the first time. The reason why that language was so hard for me to pick up is Vietnamese words only have one syllable in it. They are monosyllabic. That's like no other language that I speak out of the 7 that I speak. English speakers, Spanish speakers, Caribbean speakers, helping us learn best is to break words into syllables. So at the click of a button, we are able to, especially on the elementary and middle school level, see the words broken up so that we can pronounce them a whole lot better as we transition to American English. In addition to that, you can see that you can go into the document by clicking this, and you can have all the nouns highlighted in purple, all the verbs highlighted in red, all your adjectives in green when you click it. So it helps students identify what is a noun, what is a verb, what is an adjective. How do I use this in passing state exams that are at a higher level? Last tab is line focus. So I'm going to turn line focus on, and as you can see, for students where visual crowding is an issue, line focus allows it to read 1 line, 2 lines, or 3 lines at a time, so that your child can really learn to read a whole lot better and a whole lot quicker. These are free. It works on every device. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to do anything. You just got to know where the button is and click it. On this particular website, once I scroll down, everything that I was saying to you, it gives you all the literature, all the research, and all the data Microsoft has done to support it. There are groups of students that have been using this for the past 3 to 4 years, and their scores has increased dramatically on state reading, writing, and mathematics exams. All of this is found in here. It tells you how to identify it. It tells you how it also helps teachers. And as you continue to go down, it tells you that each of those tools on those buttons, it describes what it does from an instructional learning standpoint. And Taneri also brought some cards along for you, which she's going to pass out. And that pretty much tells you on all Microsoft platforms, so your child can upload any document into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and it will read it for them. They will have access to all the tools to get that done. And if you need a free workshop, or you want to come as a group to the store, they run those as well. In addition to the reading part of it, we at Microsoft are very invested in the STEM part of it for special ed students. Some of the engineers that I enjoy working with most were special ed students, and they are some of our most brilliant engineers. So we are truly invested in coding and things like that. At the store during the summertime, and I know it's January and we're already talking about summer, they offer free coding, Minecraft, and STEM camps for your students at the store, in addition to learning tool camps. They fill up really quickly and they're free. And they are like 3 days a week. And this is the young lady that runs all this. And if the Prudential store is not close to you, she can get you in contact with the person at the store in her position that is closest to you, so we can get your students and our teachers signed up for all of that. Okay, perfect. I am right at 15 minutes. I have 5 minutes for questions. Yes?
So can you talk a little bit about this technology's compatibility with Google Classroom?
Yes.
Because all of our students' things are in Google.
Yep.
And so those are.
It works on every device, on every platform, in Google as well. Works with Google and Apple. Yes?
I noticed you mentioned that it does have the ability for changing text sizes. But I noticed when it was reading somewhat fast.
Yes, 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 thank you. There is, so everything in it is completely controlled. You can change it from a man's voice to a woman's voice, and you can speed up or slow down the reading speed for it. Thank you for asking that. Yes,
How many languages does it support?
right now it supports 89 languages. Oh, thank you for asking that. Hey, got a lot in it. And today we can go into detail with an hour and a half of a hands-on workshop with you. This is why I invited her here. You can translate. One of those buttons on there, you hit translate, you choose your language, and it will translate the text. You can translate half of the text in English and the other half in Chinese, if that's the language you speak. And you can go back and forth between languages simultaneously. So it's a great way to learn English and other languages as well. Oh, sorry.
I'm just not clear, so would it work with like Learning Ally?
So I'm not familiar with
Learning
the...
Ally is like kind of like a book share, like an audio book. A lot of the kids in Boston Public use it. So it reads the books to the children.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be compatible with that?
I'll have to check.
So Taneri's going to check on that and follow up with you. If you can just get her name and information. Sorry, I'm not familiar with Learning Ally. But she will follow up with that for you.
I think it's only a question of would it work with an audio, with an ebook?
Does ebooks have the immersive reader button inside of it? That is the question.
You know, like a Kindle book or any sort of book like that.
Yeah.
I think if you're viewing it on an edge, if you're viewing the ebook on an edge browser, you should be able to just click on the immersive reader and it'll do that for you.
You are absolutely right. Anytime you're in the Edge browser or the Bing browser, the immersive reader button is in there. It will read everything on that browser.
I'm sorry. The Edge browser, you need to, can I pull that on my MacBook? Or it has to be in Edge Microsoft?
Nope, you can pull it up on your MacBook. And again, please go to a store. If you need help and you want one-on-one, go to a store. Take your device in a store with you and ask these questions. They all have education experts hired to help. And yes?
What age are the camps up to?
Oh, what age do y'all do camps for?
We do camps for ages 8+.
To adults.
Yeah, so we also host, for the most part, when it's content for like school age kids, we'll have camps that are catered to ages 8+ and 13+. Usually the 13+ is for like the middle school, high school crowd, whereas the 8+ is for the younger kids. For adults, we also have workshops that go over like learning tools like this and how to create a more inclusive classroom. And that's like among the many things that we offer adults as well.
How accommodating can the Prudential store be for like special needs? Like if somebody, you know, like how inclusive is it?
So I guess like a perfect example is actually we actually have a training happening tomorrow with the Horace Mann School. And we actually have ASL interpreters coming in to also facilitate the training along with me. So we meet you where you are. So depending on your needs, we'll do our best to accommodate.
And feel free to bring all the services and tools you need to bring with you at the training. Just let us know who's showing up. And we will. So in each of our stores, including the Prudential store, there is actually a classroom to the back of it. I don't know if you have ever seen it. And we can actually close that off, and that's what we do when we hold sessions. So you're not in the store itself. You're to the back, away from everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, or PowerPoint and somebody will advance it for you.
Oh,
Would you
143.
rather not have that, Lisa?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Where do you want to move?
It's just a clicker. Yeah. No, this is just a clicker.
I don't think this is in the way of people, right, is it? Like that?
It just seems like it doesn't like it.
But now that we're unplugged, we can kind of,
You can do,
that should be fine.
you should actually hold, do B-roll,
Just kind of.
walk around. Wait a second here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
I think as long as it's standing right.
No, that's okay. Hi, wonderful to see you all. My name is Elise Wulff. I am from Mass General Hospital. I work specifically at a clinic for the autism spectrum. However, I specialize in what used to be called Asperger's. Now that we don't have that word anymore, my role has certainly evolved. So I work with the entire age range, specifically thinking about the inclusion students. So these are students for whatever part of their day, whether it's one class, just specials, the entire day are benefiting from some kind of hybrid model, where their instruction in groups is 4+ up to 30. So that's kind of the best way to describe the kid that I work with is kids that are working in the inclusion setting in schools. What I'm excited to talk about tonight and also terrified to talk about is social media. And to think about, there's a very specific vulnerability of social media when we're talking about the special needs population. And so what I want to talk about today is how to embrace the future of the technological world and how we can start to teach access to social media and to the tools that are kind of inevitably a part of the future of employment, community relations, and friendships. I want to, before I get too far into my presentation, I just want to praise the Microsoft Store. So in the summer, we run therapeutic camps for kids on the spectrum, kids with ADHD, kids with nonverbal learning disorder, kids with trauma, kids that don't have a diagnosis and are just anxious or socially a little quirky. And we took a ton of them into the store, into the Microsoft Store. And you know, as the teacher or as a parent, you're like, okay, nobody touch expensive things. You know, you get ready. They were brilliant. The staff in that store were accessible, inclusive, patient, but they didn't dumb things down. So I just want to reiterate what a really fantastic group of people that is. So technology as a social tool. I'm going to skip the first 10 slides because my marketing team makes me put them in.
Okay, so
Boop, 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 boop. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, we'll go back for one. So my clinic at MGH, we focus on what we call the 3S model, which basically says for any kid, the 3 pillars of success in the long term are social competency, stress management, and self-awareness. Obviously, you can imagine underneath that are things like reading and writing. But on a big level, if we're talking happiness, quality of life, independence, the fact that we live in a world with other people, we really want to make sure that kids are getting support in those 3 domains. So I want to start by talking about social competency because this is the area I'd like to target thinking about social media. These are some of the skills that we look for to see if kids are developing in their social competency. It's a little different than just talking about communication skills. We're talking about ability to look for people you like to be around. The ability to know, I'm around you, actually don't like being around you, I'd like to be around someone else, and know what to do with that. So this PowerPoint is available to you. I think sometimes it's just nice to think about how do we break down the future of my child's social skills. So this is available to you. We can move a little bit. Keep going. Keep going. So technology is a social tool. The first thing I wanted to touch base on is encouraging parents and schools to think about building what we call digital literacy. So I think Microsoft started by giving a great example of this. Digital literacy is a specific skill set that says your child can interact with technology successfully. So can your child log on to Google Classroom and know how to find their assignment without needing the same amount of help from you every time? Can your child navigate Google? Do they know the difference between Wikipedia and a more reputable source? Digital literacy, if you flip to the next slide, WebWise is a great resource that has online tools to teach your kids digital literacy. It's a similar process to when you're working with kids and helping them learn how do you use a book? Which side do you open from? When you need to find a word in the glossary, you flip to the end and they're in alphabetical order. So the same way that we break down how do you use a book, we have to do the same teaching for how do you use the internet? How do you use social media platforms? How do you use Wikipedia? I could imagine we've all been in the situation where you Google something and it is the least helpful answer that you could ever find. And if you think about your kids, are they just going to click on that first link and think it's the answer? So the digital literacy, I think, is just something I would encourage you to ask yourself or talk with your child's teachers. What skills does my child have interacting with technology independently? Underneath digital literacy, and just a reminder, this would be like learning or teaching any other skill. So as you're working with your child's potentially IEP goals or how are they moving towards independence, you can think about breaking down technology-related skills. One thing I recommend is creating a shared social media account. I know this is terrifying. If you told me to do this with my son, I would not sleep for a week. We have to get over this hump because social media is an inevitable part of our kids' future, and the longer we take the approach of just delaying letting our kids have access to it, the longer the world learns the tools, and then your kid has to play catch up. And I don't like thinking about any kid having to play catch up, let alone our special needs kids that are probably playing it more often than other kids. So I don't suggest that you share your social media account with your kid. You're allowed to have a life. But think about starting one that's a shared account between you and your kid. The family can have one. And as you're using it, bring your kid in to showing them how you use it. If I want to send a private message to someone, I click this button, which is very different than posting something on someone's wall where everyone can see it. If you share that account, as you're interacting with the social media, you can break this down and explicitly teach your kid why you're clicking certain buttons. I also think that a lot of our kids benefit from having visual tools, right? How do I use the restroom? What's expected when I sit at the lunch table? You can do that for social media. These are two tools. This is social behavior mapping. These 4 categories, and I will say, this is one good use of Google. If you Google social behavior mapping, there are ones that will come up already done for you, okay? What's expected when I use this tool? If I do it this way, how will others feel? If I don't do it this way, how will others feel? So as you're having these conversations, you capture them in a visual that your child then has to look at next time. Also flowcharts. Being friends with someone on social media. Do you know who this person is? Yes, accept their friend request. No, ask a parent, ask a grandparent, or do not accept their friend request. Yeah, I'm seeing the teachers in the back like, it's a pervasive issue. If we can get serious for a second, social media is a real challenge with our kids, and it's not being met by avoiding our kids joining social media. It's 6-year-old, developmentally appropriate 6-year-olds should not have an Instagram account, right? But if your kid is getting older and older, and our anxiety about a special needs kid on social media causes us to prevent them from joining social media, you're actually creating a bit of a bigger barrier in the long run. Technology is a social tool. So we've talked about technology as something that helps us with relationships. It's also critical for employment these days. Kids that don't know how to send an email, don't know how to respond to a text message, that's a pre-vocational skill. resumes more and more are putting digital skills down at the bottom. Knowing how to use Google Classroom, Word. So another thing to be teaching is to think about what are the digital skills that I'm using in my daily life that 10 years from now I think are going to be a part of the landscape of every job. And think about, can you start to practice some of that with your kid now? Can they email a relative that lives far away? Can they start texting just to practice what that exchange looks like? I was joking with someone the other day that if you get the text message that is like K period, and you're like, well, is that like a K or a K? It's terrifying, right? There's tone and there's anxiety that comes into that. And the only way we get better about communicating, digitally, is by practicing and exposure to it in a supported, covered, safe setting. I want to shift to thinking about my last topic for tonight, which is preferred interests, special interests. The word we used to use for these was restricted interests. We didn't, the old philosophy of thinking about kind of autism or ADHD was, if this was what your kid was obsessed with, don't let them talk about it. We let way go of that because kids who were obsessed with things went on to make millions of dollars. And we were like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's okay for you to be obsessed with that, right? And just cut me in like 10 years, okay? So online is a fantastic place to let your kid develop their preferred interests and their strengths on a couple of different platforms. One way is to think about how can I build relationships through online platforms about this shared interest. YouTube, maybe just kids YouTube for now. I have a kid who's in 6th grade and is now making money off of his YouTube because people watch him play Flight Simulator. If I could do that, that would be great. So this world is evolving and playing into kids' strengths and how can kids play out their strengths in the online world is the future of employment, right? We're probably not going to be working in offices with other people in the future.
There's all kinds of gaming apps and everything.
Gaming apps.
That's how they develop social networks.
Absolutely. We can go on to the next slide. So here's what I'm talking about. You're forming relationships over common ground. I don't know a lot of the little kids that I work with that are really even doing play dates anymore. They meet up online after school. That's okay. My grandmother is like, what are these kids doing? I don't know. But the world is evolving. So teaching our kids how to find other people who share your interests online. It's also an opportunity for what we call interest chaining. I love trains. If I join an online forum where we watch videos of trains, and then I can also kind of get interested in train maps, and then maybe I can be interested in maps, and then maybe I can be interested in airplanes because they're how you get from one place to the next. So these places where we hold these really intense interests start to get these little offshoots where you can then slowly work to diversify your interest. Pre-vocational skills and networking. Google and online platforms, the future of digital tools, are poaching kids from places like YouTube and coding forums and Minecraft. I'm not to say you want to go crazy with it, but this is a reality. This is a strength and a skill. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook and Snapchat as productive social media outlets. YouTube and Instagram are, one, because you can put parental filters on them, and then two, they can be very interest-based and specific. I also like the fact that they don't call people friends. That's really confusing. My Facebook says I have like 1,500 friends. I don't have 1,500 friends. But if you think about our kids, we're like, oh no, my friend said to meet him downtown. Like, oh. There are so many more questions we have to ask these days. So I'm not necessarily saying Facebook and Snapchat have a ton of added value in this area. I think YouTube and Instagram do. And then lastly, I'm just going to touch base on this, thank you, and then take some questions. Social development apps, there's a lot out there. And I know we're going to talk about AAC in a little bit. Apps that claim to teach your child social development, I have a lot of reservations about them doing what they say they're going to do for a couple of reasons. One of them is that there doesn't tend to be oversight, right? Part of having great SLPs or teachers in school or therapists is they're watching what you're doing and they're steering things forward. I think apps that claim to help your kid build social skills are great on a foundational level. Learning facial expressions, understanding when I use this idiom, it's raining cats and dogs. What does that mean? So things that are on a memorization level or just a practice, recognizing this facial expression, there are great apps that can do that. Practicing social skills with a computer is a bit of a very specific situation that your child might get a little mileage from. But I think if you go online, there's a lot of social development apps that'll charge you like $20 and claim to teach your child social skills. I would just ask a couple more questions before you really pursue that. These are two places that I do like their resources. Commonsense.org is a fantastic special education resource in general. Another one is Understood.org. They have great resources on technology. This list specifically, I read through this and I keep this in my office. I like what they put on this list in general. And these three apps, Social Detective app, Social Thinking has an app now, if your kid likes this curriculum. Social Quest, I actually really like what they're doing with Social Quest. It's kind of video gamey and teaching social skills, but it doesn't claim to do a lot more than it does. So I like Social Quest. And Social Navigator is good for the right kid. If your kid is invested in learning social skills, is socially motivated, this app can help them remember, okay, you're going out to dinner, what should you say? What shouldn't you say? How do you split a bill? Your kid has to know how to navigate it though. So this is for a very specific type of kid. I think that's it. Great. So I'll pause, and I think we're going to do questions at the end.
Yeah, I think we have to do. So we can
Sure.
have Audrey come and present, and then you can have both of you answer questions together, because we
Great.
probably have some overlap. I think.
Certainly.
That was a fantastic
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank
You were
you.
so animated. I could watch you all night.
Well, thank you. And what I do want to add, I think one thing at the end, I think that the services that are available for these more nuanced kids, the ADHD, the Asperger's, the impulsive, the anxiety, it can be hard to figure out how to get your kid help when things are okay sometimes, and then they're not, and then they're okay, and then they're not. That's the type of kid we want to find. So please, if you can get in touch with me after tonight, I'm always happy to have phone consults with parents, send you towards other resources. It's hard to figure out how to support the inclusion type of kid, and it's what we do. So please reach out to me. I am always happy to have a phone call or email you, something that just might save you time, effort, and stress. Great, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Great, and this is our third presenter, Aubrey, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and thank you very much.
My name is Aubrey Rubin. I am the coordinator for the Assistive Technology Department in Boston Public Schools. We are in the Related Services Department. I am a speech pathologist by trade. This is my, 14th year in the district. Sorry. And I started as a treating therapist. I have done most of my work in substantially separate classrooms for children with autism. I have also worked in inclusion. I have worked with 3 years old all the way up through 22. I've been in multiple Boston public schools, and I finally landed sort of in the assistive technology department. This is my first year as the coordinator, but I've been on the team for several years. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things today. I'm going to give a very brief overview of what assistive technology looks like in Boston Public, And then I am going to talk a little bit more specifically about augmentative and alternative communication for our students who have difficulty speaking verbally or need some sort of support in order to speak verbally. Oh wait. It was up there before, wasn't it?
Hang on 1 second, so I have
That's me. And you can just hit present in the top. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about something called the SET framework. I'll define it, I'll talk about how we use it and why we use it, and how we use it to figure out what's going to work best for your children. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about feature matching and how we use that to make a decision to help your students function in the classroom and at home. So I want to start by defining assistive technology, and this is one of those special education terms that they did a really good job making as confusing as possible. So assistive technology is an overarching term that defines any tool that a student requires in order to access the curriculum. That's how we define it in education, and that's how it's defined by the Department of Education. It can be used outside of the educational world, but because we are in school, that's what we use. Now, underneath assistive technology, there are two pieces. Augmentative and alternative communication. Those are for students who are minimally verbal, nonverbal, or need some sort of support to help their verbal communication. And assistive technology, which is for students who have difficulty with reading and writing and math. That's what she was talking about this earlier for Microsoft. Those would be these sort of assistive technology tools. I wish they had used a different name, but they didn't. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both because the decision-making process we use is the same for both parts, and then I'm going to talk more specifically about AAC. So the Department of Ed talks a lot about assistive technology. It is on their website. And assistive technology was first referenced in IDEA. And it is a federal law that requires us as educators to make sure that our students have what they need to access the curriculum to the best of their ability. So any school team can consider augmentative communication or assistive technology, but within Boston Public we have a team of people who then can come out and help facilitate the process of seeing what exactly the student needs. So when we're talking about assistive technology, most people think iPad, right? I need an iPad. But assistive technology encompasses everything from low tech, so that could be a pencil grip for a student who's having trouble writing, all the way up to the fanciest high-tech device that just came out yesterday kind of thing. So we have to consider that whole range when we are looking at students, and that's where my team comes in. We come out and we trial a lot of those things to see what works best for the student. So because our world is moving so much towards technology, my role is becoming less and less because now a lot of the classrooms have the technology already there. When the technology is available to everybody in the classroom and any student can use it, it's part of universal design for learning, meaning meeting all students where they are. That would fall under the instructional technology. Students benefit from it, they use it, but they do not have to have it to make progress. If it's assistive technology, it is absolutely required for a student to make progress and to access the curriculum. Now, they could be the same tool that's instructional for one student and assistive technology for another. So if a student is using a tool as instructional technology and they move to a classroom where that isn't available and suddenly we see them not making progress and not accessing the curriculum, that's where I come in and it becomes an assistive technology piece. So this is the evaluation and consultation process we use in Boston. If I come out as an evaluator or if I come out as a consultant, it is the same process. It just, the difference is between, is it part of the IEP process or is it outside of the IEP process? Everything else is exactly the same. We can do the same things, we can make the same changes to the IEP as needed with a consult versus an evaluation, and I'll talk a little bit about when we do which one. But this is our process. We use the SET framework, which I will define in a minute, the WADI checklist, and that leads us to trial a bunch of different things with students. And then we make a recommendation, we try some more. If it's not right, we go back to the beginning and we try again, and we keep going around until we find the right fit. Okay, so the SET framework is something that is recommended by the Department of Ed. It was written by Joy Zabala, who's one of the premier people in AAC, and she says when you're looking at assistive technology, you need to look at these areas. You need to look at the student. Who is the student as a learner? You need to look at the environment. Where are they? What grade are they in? Who's in their classroom? What's happening in the classroom? How many teachers are there? How many other students? Do they have to move from one classroom to another? Do they have an adult with them? Do they not have an adult with them? What is it that affects their day as part of their environment? And then their tasks. What are they being asked to do? What you're being asked to do in K0 is very different than what you're being asked to do in 3rd grade. The expectations change and the tasks change. And therefore the tools that we're using also have to change. They also have to meet those needs. So this is just a quick description of the questions that we try to answer when we come out in these different areas. And what you'll see is if we come and work with your students is we're trying a bunch of different tools that we have available. So I talked a little bit about feature matching. So every low-tech, mid-tech, high-tech, pencil, scissors, they all have features, right? There are features of these systems. There's different features of each of the communication apps that we look at. There's different features of a Chromebook versus an iPad. And what we need to do is take the features of that technology, which we cannot change, because that's how it's built, and do our best to match those features with the features we've seen of the student and the environment. So it's not always a perfect match, but that's why we try things. So we might say, okay, this student has really strong categorical knowledge. They understand that these are all foods and these are all clothing. So I need an app that utilizes that skill for communication. Or this student doesn't understand yet that this picture means something else. So I need a tool that's going to teach them that and allow them to communicate. So we look at all the different features of the different devices and we try to match them as best we can to the student as well as the environment, because that's an important piece. Because I come out and make my recommendations and then I leave and then I check in. But it's the teacher and it's the classroom that has to support this. So we have to make sure that it's a match for that as well. Okay, so these are our assistive technology, AT devices, that we often recommend, but we never say those things in the IEP. And here's the reason why. What if tomorrow, the latest and greatest portable word processor with internet capabilities comes out and we've written Chromebook? We're stuck. But if something else comes out that has a better feature, we can change it without having to change the IEP. So that's one of the reasons we don't write things like Chromebook. In there we describe it. If you were to move to another district, having the description of what the child needs is more evidence and it's more thorough so that somebody would know exactly what this child needs in order to be able to access the curriculum. So you won't see those words written in there, you'll see these. So I wanted you to have the translation of what that actually meant. So the next one is for our AAC systems. So an iPad with AAC will never say iPad because we're starting to see more apps that are not iPad based, they're tablet based, they're Android based, so we want to make sure we have those options. And we'll never say GoTalk. I'll give you a perfect example. Last year I went to order GoTalks for a student and the company was back ordered for 6 months. I went, they can't wait that long. So I had to find another company that made something similar that I could use, and it was okay because this is what was written in the IEP. So I was able to find another company that made something that was also a multi-cell static display voice output device, so the student didn't have to wait. I'm going to talk a little bit about the layout of everything, but you can kind of see, skipping this step, this helps lead to this, which helps lead to this, right? They build on each other. Okay, so I'm going to talk a lot about AAC now. So why do we communicate? Right? Our primary function of communication is social interaction. So it's great that I'm coming right after Aspire because that is why we communicate. We communicate for the human interaction, okay? It's not just isolated skills, but it's that interaction. And even asking for something is a social interaction. You have to be with a person to be able to ask them for something. If you've ever been in an IEP meeting with me, or if your student uses an alternative communication mode, you have probably heard core vocabulary. Core vocabulary are those little words that we use to say 80% of what we say. Well, unless you're an educator. Educators like to use big words, but everybody else uses these little words like big, little, go, eat, do. And we can say most of what we want to say with those words. We call them big bang for your buck words, because if you learn those words, you can say a lot of different things. If you really, really love Doritos, and you learn the word Doritos, that's great, but what if it's the wrong flavor Doritos? If you want to say, and then you can say, not that Doritos, different Doritos. So now you've got these other words that you can use to control your environment and to get your needs met. It's a really good way for our students to access language, to convey a lot of information easily. So that's why we teach core vocabulary. All of the systems in AAC are based in core vocabulary. All of the high-tech systems, they are all based in core vocabulary. You have to have it to be able to successfully access these complex systems. So I talk a lot about core vocabulary. I love core vocabulary. I could probably do this entire presentation in core vocabulary if I tried hard enough, but you can't make it through school without fringe. You need to have it. These are our content area words. These are the words that you have to be able to talk about the Iditarod when your class is studying the Iditarod. Or these are the words you have to be able to participate in science. You have to have fringe to participate in school, but it needs to be combined with core vocabulary.
And so fringe vocabulary are nouns and verbs.
They are mostly nouns. Verbs tend to be core.
Okay.
Okay, this is a very complex slide for me to show a lot of it. So the book in the center, some of your students may have. This is a communication book. It's a pretty common one that we make in the district. And you'll see the core vocabulary board is down here, and these up here flip up, and they're different fringe words that a student might need. This is a very complicated book for a student. It's not usually where we start with our youngest students, but it is. There's 60 words on the bottom here. It's a very complex system. It's just low tech. But you can see it mirrors some of these other systems. So this is one of our mid-tech systems. You can see, it's a little hard to see, but the core vocabulary is on the left, and our fringe vocabulary is on the right. And the reason we do that is if you're looking at touch chat, blinding myself here, the core vocabulary is on the bottom, and these are folders that lead to your fringe vocabulary. So even though we're not necessarily at a high-tech system, we're trying to mirror that in our low-tech books and the things that we use, because we're always thinking long-term, we're always thinking ahead, that what skills do we need to be able to access these. Now there are no prerequisites for any of these communication systems. There is nothing that your child has to be able to do. Oh, they have to do this in order to be able to use one of these systems. But remember, there are features of each of these systems that make it a successful match or not. And one of those features is understanding categories and understanding how to use core vocabulary. That's it? Okay. So I am happy to answer any questions about these systems. I can tell you quickly what they are. This is Speak for Yourself. This is a newer app that has just come out. It is put out by a speech pathologist. The buttons are actually that little. It's a very complex system, but it is based in motor learning. So no button that your child would ever have to use is more than 2 hits away. So whereas one of these, this is Proloquo, and that's touch chat. You may have to do 6, 7, or 8 hits to get to a specific button. But the Speak for Yourself is set up very complex. It's a very linguistically complex system. Okay? Do you want me to wait on questions? Do you want me to do questions?
Well, why don't we ask Elise to come back up, and maybe you can answer questions together. And sorry, Tisha's not here anymore. I sort of hoping to people. Great. Well, please ask your questions. And there you go.
I have a question.
Yes.
I forgot your name.
Aubrey.
Sorry. Aubrey. So for kids, this is all new to me in terms of your job, your role in DPS, and how it works with the IEP process.
Yep.
Because just speaking from experience, I've never seen any of those categories in my IEP. I would love to have had them. The way my son accesses the AAC is through children's hospital.
Yep, and that's absolutely fine. We work very closely with children.
But I have to wait a year to make an
Yes.
appointment, and that's a really
Yes,
long
that is,
process.
yes.
And so, in the way they connect, they try to send information from that one appointment to the school. I don't find that I'm the best person to translate that, and I feel like I do my best, but having you there seems to...
This year, I reached out to Children's to say, hey, anytime a student from Boston Public comes in, can you get consent signed and let me know? Because oftentimes we already know about them and we've already seen them, but sometimes we don't. Usually the process starts by you talking to, if it's a augmentative communication concern, your speech therapist. If it's a reading and writing concern, your occupational therapist. And they get in touch with us, but all you'd have to say to them is you would like somebody to come and see what your child might need in terms of alternative communication. It can be outside of the IEP process. That's a consultation. If it's within the IEP process, they do it through an evaluation, and we have the 45 days to do the evaluation and hold the meeting. So a consultation, we do the same things, but the time is a little bit different. It allows us to come out a few more times and try out some different things. So it just depends on the timeline of things and how, where you want to go. But it usually starts with your school-based team, so asking your teacher or your speech pathologist, and they get in touch with us. Because we can't be everywhere all at once, and we don't know all the schools. So that's usually the first line.
So start there.
So ask the speech therapist to look into it. Yes, Children's is wonderful. We work very closely with them. They do a wonderful job, but it's a long wait list. And and then there's cancellations, and it's hard. So yeah, absolutely, let your speech therapist. Yeah.
Can you request an AT consultation with an initial IEP evaluation?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Can you request an AT consultation with an initial IEP evaluation?
You cannot, only because, so assistive technology by definition in DESE is only for students with a defined disability. So we cannot come out and see a student unless they have a 504 or an IEP or an N1 defining a specific disability, and then we can come out. So you have your initial meeting, a student is determined to have a disability, and then they can call us the next day.
Oh, so if it's listed on the N1 letter, then you can...
As long as it's accepted, yes. Okay. But we can't be part of the team that determines if a child has a disability. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How does Boston Public Schools expose special needs children to technology, to the augmentative communication devices? Because I've heard in the past that the device won't be recommended for the child if the child's not familiar with, say, an iPad, even if they can, how do you expose them to?
So the curriculums in the classrooms are very visually based, at least the ones that I haven't been in them all, I can't say they're all of them, but, and they do use a lot of pictures and symbols, so from a very early age we are working on increasing a child's symbol knowledge and understanding that this picture means this one thing, but it can also sometimes, like if you're using the word go, that picture can mean a lot of different things. And what it means to a 3-year-old is going to be different than what it means to an 18-year-old. So we start very young teaching that information and teaching categories. Like I said, you've got to have category knowledge in order to be able to do some of this stuff. And also, so it's not. I mean, there's no prerequisites, meaning you never have to have seen an iPad to be able to get one. But we do look at what the student can do. Now, I know as well as everybody else, coming out once and seeing a child is a snapshot. It's the same with children. They get 1 2-hour session. It's not necessarily a fair glimpse at a student, which is oftentimes why we recommend a trial of a device, because I don't want to recommend something wholeheartedly and be wrong. So a lot of times we'll recommend a trial of a different thing, and if it's not right, we'll change it and we'll try something else, because we're looking for data and we're looking for that child's use of whatever it is in a different variety of environments, because it's great if they can use it one-on-one with me in my evaluation, but if they're then throwing it across the room because they want nothing to do with it the rest of the time, that's not useful, that's not helpful to them. So they don't have to have seen an iPad, they don't have to have ever seen any of these applications. We have students who, as long as they've been sort of understanding that symbol knowledge and learning that pictures mean things, do very well on our consultations and evaluations. And we always try to come multiple times. We know that it's not a fair glimpse if I only come out once. That's not fair to the child. So we do try to come out more than once. We do try to see them with familiar people. We do try to see them in a variety of environments. I have a team of people so that we're able to sort of get out as quickly as possible and do this as many times. Sometimes it's more than one of us, so that we can see them in multiple places to make sure we get the best picture.
What if my child has an IEP, but it didn't state anything about him using a communication device, but later I was able to get one through the children's hospital. How do I bring it into his classroom setting?
It's a very good question. So I don't know if everybody heard, she asked if her child has an augmentative communication device from Children's Hospital, how does she bring it into the school? You can send it in. It does not have to be referenced in the IEP. What I suggest is that they put in the IEP that it's a parent-provided communication device, so that it's referenced there, so people know if the child moves around and the IEP follows them. That's usually how we reference it. When that happens, the team usually calls us in to help facilitate getting it up and running and used. And I usually then reach out to Children's to make sure we have the initial evaluation to understand what they were recommending and why. And then we help the school-based team implement it and use it across the day.
Any questions on social media and social interactions on with technology?
I have questions for her, so great.
I mean, I do. So this is particularly for the social media and mostly around YouTube. I can't really touch much on that. But like, I have two kids. One is typical, the other one is atypical. And I use like YouTube to show like the child version for him. And then I'm learning to figure out how to, make sure he stays where he needs to be, because he like moves around in the screen.
Yeah.
So his issue is not so much, he's more controlled. My daughter, who's 10, likes to explore. So I guess, and I'm sure this will apply to kids, whether they're typical or not, when they're sort of navigating, even though I'm trying to, make sure I know what she's doing, and sometimes I'm like, what was that? How do you set up better, not some boundaries, because I tell her what to do and what not to do, but things just pop up. Like, how do you better handle that or monitor that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking with the kid the other day, and he was saying, well, if I do something that I think my parent is going to think I did wrong, I won't tell them.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yes, you're right. Don't tell me. In some ways, that's good social thinking, right? I think that it's about leaning into the errors that can come with it. So it used to be the case that we could say, please stay away from these websites. The danger is much more fluid now. The websites are finding you. So I think it's about creating a culture where the kids don't feel shame if and when this happens. It's almost so inevitable that the kid can't avoid it. The kid could do everything right and end up in a really sticky situation. So I think one of the things is the nice thing is, if she's still 10, you said, it's still kind of acceptable or cool to sit down and go on YouTube together. No, you're past that? Sorry. Sorry. 10 going on 32? Yeah, I have those too. So one thing is to try to create a situation where she might engage with you around YouTube, like you bring a video to her, and then make a mistake intentionally yourself, and be like, oh gosh, I clicked on the wrong thing. This happens to me all the time. How do I get back to where I'm supposed to go? So it just lets kids know, I am clicking on the wrong things all the time. the MGH security office has my number on speed dial because I do therapy, right? So I don't do direct therapy, but I work in a therapeutic setting. So I work with these kids, and the kid will come in and tell me about something that I have to know what they mean. So I Google it, and I get a call 10 seconds later saying, Elise, don't Google that word. I mean, we could have a longer conversation about that. There might be kids watching, right? So I make mistakes with this all the time, letting the kids know that these are mistakes that I'm making and bringing the mistakes to them. I think also empowering the kids and saying, like, listen, I don't know how to use this, even if you do. Can you show me how you use it? So I think first and foremost, trying as much as possible to model mistakes with technology and model resiliency and recovery and asking for help and kind of owning that. And then I had a second thought, but it left me because I also have a kid. You asked about technology, YouTube. I think that depending on, this is more so for a neurodiverse kid, where the memory of what do I do when I get myself into this situation might be tricky. Flowcharts. I mean, we share some friends in common, and for kids on AAC devices, you can also put social media tools and flowcharts to help them understand, this happened, what do I do next to get help?
The devices connect directly to social media, and you can put those charts, they can pop right up on the social media as your, that's a brand new feature of these applications, is that they can connect to social media. We have to disconnect it in the schools though, sorry. They can't be going on social media in the middle of English class.
They are.
They are, but they can't.
They shouldn't be.
Any thoughts on TikTok?
Yes. Lots. How much time do we have? It's one of those that I put in a category of you have to know what this is. Do I see a social connectivity value in it? No, because it's one way and disappears. You know, so you get things like, she asked about TikTok. You know, you get it's like Snapchat. Someone sends you something and then I can't go back and look at it. It's just a gateway for confusion for our kids that are already socially compromised. And they have to know what it is. I actually worked with an AT to make a what are these social media platforms and what do they do book. So like, what is Instagram? Why do I go on Instagram? Who else goes on Instagram? And then kind of a cheat chart of good things about Instagram, bad things about Instagram. So you can also kind of do some teaching about, there's a level of you have to know what this platform is and maybe not engage or interact with it.
Where can I get your contact info?
Right here. Yeah, please feel free to reach out, yeah.
How do we as parents, try to stay ahead of the game for all of us? Because I learn of all these new things from my 10-year-old who learns from her classmates in school.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, do it. And then I'm like,
yes.
That was a bad idea.
I gotta be honest, I don't know. The question was, how do we stay ahead of this as parents? I don't know.
I follow a lot of blogs. There's a lot of people out there, often special needs parents and educators who blog a lot about technology, social media, and I follow a lot of those people, and that's where I learn it. I have kids, young kids too, and they come home and I go, wait, what? And then I'll go check there, because they are up and above.
So fast.
So fast.
So fast.
And so there's a lot of those that I sort of follow through Facebook and through Instagram, and that's where I get a lot of my information.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can share some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Common Sense Media. Yes, that's one of the Common Sense Media is a really good one.
Yep.
One here.
There's just a couple of things that I wanted to share. Like, there's an app called Screen Time that I use with my kids, and my kids are 12, 14, and 15, and so I use Screen Time when they were younger. Like, what Screen Time allows you to do is pretty much see anything that the kid is doing, like, on the screen, whatever it is, laptop, cell phone, or whatever. But as they've gotten older, as they've learned to take it off, to take screen time off of their screen, then it opens up a dialogue about, like, why they would take it off. And so, but usually you can see, like, what they were doing right before they deleted it. So that's one way that I'm able to kind of keep tabs on like what these new things are, because they show up all the time.
That's a really good one.
The other thing is if you have iPhones and you create a family connection, then you can kind of see like what your kid is doing on a regular basis, and they don't always know that you can see it, and they'll forget anyway. Like, you know, you just have them accept the family thing, and they'll forget it's on there.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, having that
Yes.
conversation, especially if they start things over.
Absolutely, and if I can go back to what you're saying, the whole app thing made me think about it. I think one other thing is emails are the access to apps. So your kid cannot download an app without, for the most part, this is an overgeneralization, a working email. So I think if there's one touch point that is just like, this is non-negotiable, it's knowing the password to emails. We figured out a situation the other day because we logged onto the email and saw when they joined an app. And was like, ding, 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 that's when the train left the tracks. And I don't want to, be doomsday about this. I think our kids are teaching me how to use these apps. So I think, like you said, the dialogue, the no shame dialogue, and maybe having like a really critical touch point, like being able to log into their email and talking about it. I'm not here saying go log into your kid's email without telling them. Sometimes it's just, we got to do the best we can, and special needs parents run the world. And you're going to take care of the 9 other things that are going on. So if you want to reach out and ask for help, and there might be someone who knows like one more app than I do, please don't hesitate to do so.
Could you also speak, Aubrey, about the role of assistive technology with service-only students that have IEPs through Boston, but are either going whether to private schools or specialized schools?
Yes. It's a very complicated question with a sort of complicated answer. So if a student is a BPS student and they are attending another school, sometimes those schools have their own assistive technology. It falls under the instructional technology for our purposes that they provide. But if a student is on an IEP and receiving services in Boston and they require assistive technology, that would still come through my team. So,
And are all the same types of assistive technology available to those service-only students also?
So yes, the complicated piece is we can't see that. We get permission, and my boss is here, so I'm looking at her. We get permission to go to the school because the environment is such an important piece of what I do that you can't come to me to do this evaluation and this consultation. I have to go to the student and see them in the environment. So yes, the same tools are available, but a lot of times those schools have great technology, and we're just making tweaks to what's already there and available to what they're using. Yes?
I have a question, and I'm happy to hear that there's another parent with a teenager. So my child's a high school senior and finally got ET access a year ago, which has been fabulous. But what happens come May when he graduates? He's on a 504, not a 90. So what happens come May with the license that belongs to Boston, not him?
So that specific license will be returned to Boston. However, there are lots of avenues that we can look at and explore to get him what he needs post-secondary.
And who do I contact for that?
I'll make sure you have my email. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I'm never at my phone.
Okay, any more questions? Great, well, thank you very much.
Oh
We
my
really
God.
appreciate it. And Sandy's going to tell us about our event next month.
So next month's general meeting is about advocacy and bullying prevention, and hopefully we'll have an open discussion at the end. And on that agenda, we have Gail Degato from, she's the Metro Region Coordinator for Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong. We have Ellie Castine, she is the Program Facilitator for Boston vs. Bullies. And we have Jody LG, who is the Senior Director at Succeed Boston at the Counseling and Intervention Center through BPS. And they handle all of the bullying investigations. So those are the 3 speakers for next month, and that is on February 27th, here. Same time, same place.
Great. And I think, is there still pizza left?
Yes.
There's still pizza left.
Pizza and
There's
water.
another 15 minutes, so, mingle and, have Have a good night.